What's going on, y'all? It's Brian with Brian and Fearless with the show. Hey, welcome back to Trial and Error for this week. So this week I wanted to do. Let me take my hair down a little bit. This week I wanted to do an episode about limiting beliefs because I'm going through a season of some opportunities, super busy, and it's really easy to fall into the pitfall of beliefs that no longer serve you or whatnot. As you can see, there's a link to the Foundry. That is a joint project that I'm doing with myself and 531 Labs. The Foundry is where, that's how we're doing our marketing consulting now. I'm the message, the other half is the machine. And so realistically, if you see the link for the Foundry, that's just my that's our marketing consulting side of things. I don't know why it keeps popping up every single time I'm up on a live stream, so I'm trying to figure out what automation is triggering it. But since you see it, if you want to learn some marketing, learn the ins and outs of marketing, go ahead and join the Foundry, and we can get that thing rolling. So I was just kind of prepping the audience today, talking about limiting beliefs, when they serve you, when they don't serve you. And the thing that kind of prompted it is I am super busy in a season full of opportunities coming up and understanding what I can do and what I can't do. And I think a lot of times, especially in self-help spaces, and Fearless and I have discussed a lot of the self-help stuff, and what the issues are with the industry by in large. In the self-help spaces, you see a lot about limiting beliefs. And I think sometimes people believe that, if they are physically incapable of doing something, that it's a mind over matter thing, or if they're mentally incapable of doing something where they don't have the knowledge or even the emotional reserves to do something, they beat themselves up because they think it's a limiting belief. Kind of my preface is, you can have the belief that if the belief crosses your mind that you can jump in the polar bear pit at the zoo because the polar bear is giving you dirty looks, and you have a belief that you can overcome that polar bear, which you need to not believe that, because you need to limit your belief about jumping in there and fighting a polar bear, right? Like sometimes your limiting beliefs keep you alive, and keep you safe. And so that's what we want to talk about, like kind of give the frame to it. I understand the concept of it, but at the same time, there's always a counter to everything that we do. There's always kind of a counter to it. So that's what I got.
So yeah, I like that. So the first thing we'll do is set the stage for what that is or whatever. So for the most part, a belief is a state or habit of mind which trust or confidence is placed in some person or thing. Okay, so again, that's whenever I'm talking to people about certain things, especially as a philosopher, I tell people off top, what is the defining thing of what we're talking about? What's the foundation? What's the definition of what we're talking about? Right. So if I'm talking to a person about racism, the first thing I ask is, what is your definition of this? And before we jump into whatever our conversation is, let's at least understand, let's at least find some common ground that we can agree upon. Right. Because I see a lot of what happens is people jump off this proverbial cliff just to be just to argue with certain things. Yeah. So there's nothing you're going to say to them that's going to change their mind. And I don't know if they want their mind changed in general. But for myself, I have to ask exactly what are we talking about before we jump into this conversation. And another word or another thing that I kind of like as well is looking at the antonyms as well as the synonyms for a word. Mm-hmm. So in this case, we're looking at the synonyms of a similar word. So if we're talking about beliefs, we're talking about credit, we're talking about certainty. But the one thing that you don't see on here is facts.
Right.
The one thing you won't see is fact. A belief is not a fact.
Right.
So I don't know if people really understand that or whatever. And that's fine if you do, if it's fine if you don't. But I at least want to make sure that people at least understand what these things are before we get started. Because you say, well, that's a fact. No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
So again, um, certitude, trust, positiveness, um, dogmatism. I mean, a doctrine, a tenet, principles, convictions, an axiom, law. These are not facts. They're belief structures.
Right.
Right? That's all it is. So I
Well,
think that as long as we understand that, we can talk about whatever.
right. And I do think that, I understand if you believe you can achieve, and that's not what we're saying. We're not saying, don't have belief in yourself or anything, but sometimes your beliefs have to be more to some kind of factual information.
That
Um,
part.
or some kind of factual based framework, even if you
Mhm.
don't have the facts on, like, even if you don't have proof that you yourself can execute the thing. Sometimes you have to have a pathway to executing it that's realistic. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of times people get into this I believe it, so it's true kind of mind state. I think that's kind of what we're being governed by right now.
Correct.
And unfortunately, that world, like at some point, that level of I can I can by brute force, I can shape the world no matter what, and it is into what I want it to be. That's fine and everything until you start to encounter other people, and you have to other people end up becoming the limiting factor in it.
Right.
And so I understand the power of willpower and I understand the power of positive belief. But sometimes some people are running around with, they believe in things that aren't real. And then they try to make the things that aren't real through force of belief. And then it brings them into conflict with people, in sometimes it's a negative thing, right? Like, their belief is actually harmful to other people and they're trying to make this harmful thing manifest in real life, and you're doing a lot of damage to yourself. So there has to be some kind of factual anchor to your belief structure on some aspects of it. Like I said, I'm
Mhm.
I'm not saying don't dream. I'm not saying don't reach for the stars, right? What I am saying is, make sure that you have some kind of factual basis for this thing that you're locked in on. And that should kind of frame your actions around it. Like, real life is more complicated than just I believe in the thing and it is, right?
Right.
And so that's the real is. Here's the other side though. Other people have their beliefs about you, and those beliefs that they have about you probably, they may not clearly define what you're really capable of, and they artificially put caps on what you believe. Um,
Mhm.
or they try to cap what you believe. And so there's a balance there. Like I said, um, you know, anything in excess is bad, right? Um, Believing things that aren't true, at some point you're crossing over into some kind of was it DSM-4, DSM-5 kind of, you're believing you're it's magical thinking, right? Um,
Mhm.
Other times it's I have a vision that nobody else sees, but I know this vision to be true based on these factual things that I know that are existing in the world. And just because nobody else sees the vision doesn't mean that vision won't work.
Right.
So there's balances here, right? Um, so the question is, can you tell the difference between, um, you know, can you tell the difference between the actual limiting belief or a belief that is in conflict with reality? Can you tell the difference? And how do you tell the difference?
Honestly, man, I think it all depends on the person.
Okay.
It truly does because what what one person may believe is not what somebody else would
Yep.
or whatever. I mean, look at religion, for instance. There's thousands upon thousands of different denominations and different people who take this one book and say, well, this is what I believe. Well, this is what I believe. Well, this is what I believe. You see what I'm saying? So again, it's one thing, but it's thousands of different interpretations of that one thing,
Yeah.
right? And then again, you're talking about something where the people that were actually there or whatever have conflicting stories,
Right.
right? I mean, it's just one of those things. So people can swear up and down that that um that they believe this to be true based on this what I like to call ears,
Hmm.
evidence or experience, assumptions, references, and superstitions. And not one of those things are a fact,
Right.
right? So again, man, a lot of it's telephone, a lot of this stuff is oral,
Hmm.
uh, communication back and forth. So again, it just all depends on the person.
Yep.
It all depends on the story. There's certain people who wake up one day and says, "Hey, I want to start a multi-billion-dollar business."
Hmm.
Nobody believes them until they reach that first couple million or something.
Yeah.
You know,
And
like, hey, or some people. I read a story about a guy who sold his Ferrari. I think he became a monk, and he had a lot of money and a lot of prestige, prestige and status, and one day he just gave it all up and became a monk and joined a monastery.
I know what you're talking about.
So, right, yeah. So again, different beliefs are for different people.
Right.
You know what moves one person may not move the next.
Well, and I think it is shaped by life experience. Hey, Sean, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, it is having a grounded sense of okay, this is, and I think sometimes it is this is where the ground is, and this is where the sky is, and there are certain things I'm trying to reach up in the sky, and I have to boost myself up to get there, right? But
Hmm.
as long as you have a grounded sense of what your reality is, and I think maybe that's the good starting point. You know, and some people, their
Hmm.
imaginations are a lot more robust when it comes to opportunities for themselves or things that they imagine themselves doing. And sometimes your limiting belief is limited by what your imagination allows you to do,
Hmm.
right?
I mean, you know, and it's kind of cool that Sean brings up Casey Kasem. Yeah, I used to listen to that dude every Sunday,
Hmm.
and one of the things that he used to do is give these nuances and these tidbits of information
Hmm.
about these musicians, musician. I always mess that word up. Not musician,
Hmm.
musicians, and he would talk about their backstories or certain songs that came about, and this that, and the other. And a lot of what he talked about with these happy, unintentional mistakes that would happen,
Right.
where that song would be so big that the people who were writing it at the time didn't know it. But then there would be sometimes that a person woke up um, and the song came together in 5 minutes and they thought that it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Hmm.
And it comes out to be Eye of the Tiger because the label said, hey, we need one more song. They're like, dude, okay, just throw something together real fast. They throw it together and that song is still, if, I don't care who you are, at least here in America,
Hmm.
you hear the don't, don't,
Hmm.
you automatically know what that is,
Well,
right?
yeah,
And that's because somebody said, hey, get back in there. We need one more song.
the entire Walk This Way, Run DMC and Aerosmith,
Yeah.
that was not supposed to happen. and the fact that it is a hit is amazing because neither like Aerosmith was doing it because they're about to go bankrupt, and they just said, let's just go ahead and do it. Run DMC didn't even want to be in there with Aerosmith because the way they saw them, they were drugged out and everything, and they didn't think it would work.
Right.
And it just it took off. It was like, it kind of caught fire, and nobody was expecting it to, nobody was expecting it to do what it did. And so when they were creating it, the person that kind of put it together, I think it was Rick Rubin, had some hand in it. Um, he had a vision of what this could be, and neither side actually saw what his vision is, and he put it together and ended up being that one of the most seminal hits of the 80s, and one of the more important songs of pop culture, because that was the thing that opened the door uh, for a lot of people to what hip hop was. And if you want to sit at, like, there's a video on YouTube where they actually talk about the backstory behind "Walk This Way" with Run DMC and Aerosmith. It's really kind of a fascinating thing because that song should have never existed, but it did. And
Right.
neither side was really excited about it. Neither side really believed in it. Um, you know, um, to the point where up until it actually blew up, both sides were shocked, and neither one of them, like, they didn't want to put it on the album. They didn't want Run DMC didn't want to make it their lead single because they thought it would destroy their career.
Oh wow.
They thought it would absolutely destroy their career. And so, yes, sometimes those limiting beliefs are meant to be shattered. I'm talking about the limiting belief that actually puts you in the belief, the cap on your belief that actually keeps you from doing something dangerous, reckless, or stupid. That is, you know, like I said, I always go back to the jumping in the alligator pit, or if the lion is loose in the mall. If you think you have a limiting belief about your ability to fight off a lion, then you're probably living under some level of delusion.
Yeah. You know what? I was just listening to some podcast thing or whatever, and they were talking about trying to think of the name of that song, man. It's something about the seagull. Sean, do you know what I'm talking about? Something about like a no, that's Toad the Wet Sprocket. What is the other one with the seagull?
When did it come out?
Man, like late '80s.
Late 80s. Flock of Seagulls. I know the band Flock of Seagulls.
No, something about anyway. But it's a really popular song, and the guy said that he wrote the thing in like 5, 10 minutes. But again, even then, it didn't come out for another couple years, and he never thought anything of it. And then come to find out that song is still being ran today. I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to think of the name of it. But it's a really pretty song though.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm saying it'll pop into my head.
Right.
But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things I was thinking about though. Hold on, I can't. I if I sing it, I'll no, but I can't even. I can see the guy in my head. I can't even hear the melody. But it was something about seagulls.
It'll hit you like at 2 in the morning or something. Some just random
Nah,
out
it'll
of
hit me in a couple minutes. Hold on.
either.
Go ahead and talk about. I'll
Okay.
find it.
So, what a limiting belief actually is, a belief about what is possible for you, a belief about what you deserve, a belief about what will happen if you try. you know those are those kind of the framework to start out with, right? um Examples that people carry about limiting beliefs: people like me don't do that. um I'm not good with money. I'm not creative. um I'm not leadership material. Like, people will say these kind of things and treat them as factual beliefs about themselves, um without ever. And when they say it, they end up kind of, it almost has this weird wish fulfillment kind of thing. Like, you say, well, I'm not creative, or I'm not a leader, right? and you say it, and then your body and brain almost alter themselves to make that thing a reality.
Okay.
You say, I'm not a leader, but then when you're faced with an opportunity to be a leader, since you are so ingrained and locked in the idea that you aren't a leader, what happens is when you get that opportunity, you end up sabotaging your leadership stuff so that you can believe the thing that you told yourself about yourself. And so
Mm.
I think sometimes you do really have to be careful about the words that you, the stuff that you speak over yourself, the incantations you speak over yourself, because you absolutely will try to manufacture your own reality in that aspect of it.
Right.
And so that's, I think, those kind of limiting beliefs where you are, saying, well, like my one I always say is, I can't draw, I'm not an artist. And um I've said it so many times that it's just kind of ingrained in my head that I can't draw anything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then I have a daughter who is a phenomenal artist, and she's never told
Right.
herself she couldn't draw. And sometimes I go back and wonder, like, if I ever went and just said, I'm not great as an artist, but I'm going to learn. Sometimes I wonder what I could create if I would have done that. But she never operated off that limiting belief, and so she's able to create these pictures and paintings and stuff, and it's kind of second nature to her. And so, you know, I even can be subject to those kind of things. I ran so far away. Yeah, the flock of seagulls is what I was saying too.
Nah, that's not it.
Okay, because I love, like, I have a weakness for new wave 80, like that new wave era. You know, I like that. I like that sound in the 80s was really amazing to me. Um, but yeah, so when we're talking about those kind of limiting beliefs, when you're speaking negative over yourself, and sometimes even as a joke, right? Some people will they'll make negative jokes about themselves, and it's supposed to be self-deprecating, but all it is self-limiting. So I think that those limiting beliefs aren't necessarily beneficial to who you are and your growth trajectory as a person. Um, you know, the leadership material one, it blows my mind, because here's the thing: a lot of times the people that I've always found this out, and I've always found this to be true. The people that sit there and pound the table and talk about, I'm a leader, I'm a leader, I'm a leader, and all this other stuff. A lot of times, the people that want it the most, or the people that speak it the most, or act like it the most, or verbalize it the most, typically end up to not really wanting to be a leader. They want to be in charge. And there's a difference between being a leader and being in charge. Like, leadership, in my experience, is more of a service. You know, you are taking the reins of leadership, putting yourself out there on the forefront and exposing yourself to whatever negative things happen, positive or negative, but you're sacrificing yourself to ensure that this project goes through, or your team is successful. Leadership is more of a service than anything else. And I feel like the reins of leadership should change depending on who's the most competent person for the job is. To me, that's a real leader, where a leader looks and says, I'm not qualified to lead us through this section, but this person is. So I need you to take point on this and guide us through until you reach the point where you can't do it, or where you can't do it anymore. And then I could take back over. To me, that's actual leadership. I think a lot of times people just want to be in charge and not actually be a leader, if that makes sense.
Right.
But um, that's just that specific one. I'm not leadership material. I think anybody can be leadership material depending on the context of the situation. um
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we mistake the leader for being the loudest person or the loudest voice, and not the most qualified to be to guide us to success. That's just my take on it. um
I
but
agree.
a lot of these limiting beliefs come from one experience, one failure, a piece of criticism, or some kind of moment of embarrassment, or and you end up building an entire worldview around this one or two incidents, or this one person in your life that said something to you about you that you believed. And so that's where a limiting belief can come from. you know um And I don't have a ton of use for those kind of limiting beliefs. Um, you know, I think
Like, why not?
like if okay, so being defined, like I guess I look at it like this because we talk about trial and error, right? Being letting yourself be defined by one major failure, and that ends up forming what your belief about yourself is. Um, I think that I don't have a ton of use for moving forward. And I've been in that seat, and where I keep trying to define what I'm capable of by a single point of failure and start obsessing about the failure as opposed to obsessing about ways to prevent the future failure. Does that make
Mm,
sense?
yep.
Get so locked in on the feeling of this thing didn't work and woe is me, I screwed this up and blah blah blah, that I don't focus on, okay, so what went wrong, how do we address this so next time you can get out there and be successful. um you know I've done that with business ideas. I've done that with um I had a service, I actually had a service for my marketing agency, was a fractional CMO service. And basically I came in and was your marketing department, your marketing leadership, right? And since I didn't really define it at the time, I didn't put boundaries around what I could do and what I would do, and ended up walking into a situation where that completely went sideways. And it got to the point where I was so tied into this one client that I couldn't even go out and market to get new clients because all my time was devoted to this client. And all of it was my fault because I never said no to anything.
Mm,
And that ended up shaping a negative experience. And that was a high paying service that I got paid for, but I ran away from it as fast as I could.
mm.
And I ran. I ran so far
Yeah, for
away.
sure.
And so you know, hindsight being 2020, even now, I wonder if I would have put frameworks about it, and and just learn the lesson as opposed to internalizing the negative side of it. It was a lack of systems, not a lack of effort, right?
Mm.
There's a lack of boundaries, not a lack of ability.
Correct.
I never went back and reframed it and ended up becoming a limiting belief like fractional CMO, I can't do this service anymore.
Mm. So yeah, I'm looking at what Sean says that I'm a leader. I'm strong, confident, but don't possess the skills to be empathetic or sympathetic. Life deals you a hand to play, and if you need to bluff your way through in certain situations,
Yeah.
that's okay too. You know what? Yeah, I think so. But I also, I would also add on to that, Sean, if you wouldn't mind a little bit of
Mhm.
add on to that, um, is when you know that there's certain things that you're not good at,
Mhm.
and you bring other people in that are good at those things, let them do their thing, man.
Yeah.
Like, like you're good at this over here. You might be good at, out of 20 things, you might be amazing at 18.
Mhm.
But then there's somebody else that will wipe the floor with you with those two other things. And you can fake it till you make it, but if you just give them the reins to handle that 2%, that's 2% of stuff that you don't have to worry about.
Mhm.
And I think that what happens is, from what I've seen, is that you get people out there that may say, well, you know what? I've been in leadership roles. I'm a strong individual. I've had this title, I've had this, I've had that. And they think because they've done this over here that they can do these things over here too. But I also think that being a strong leader is knowing where your faults are as well and
Right.
bringing people in to to maximize what you're not good at.
Right.
And the thing, and for me personally, I being a being a life coach and philosopher, man, I like you have to ask for help. You have to me, bow down to somebody else. Like, hey, I suck at this. Can you handle this? Gotcha, not a problem. I I'm helping a little old lady right now. Um, I'm not even joking with you, dude. I'm helping a little old lady right now start a business, and I think she's calling it like grandma's mo. I'm gonna stop. Anyway, we're calling it grandma something, but she came over to the house. I've been having some, pardon me, some stuff that I've been needing to fix on my motorcycle. And motorcycles, for the most part, is this manly, macho type of thing. Well, I suck at fixing stuff. Like,
Mhm.
if it's not tool, this, boom, done, I'm not the best.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I figure it out? God, yes. It just might take me a minute. But somebody like my friend Wendy, I mean, she's been doing that for 30 years. So why would I don't want to say infringe on her stuff or whatever like that, but it's my stuff. I have the money. I could pay her, and she's going to do a professional job because she's been doing it for so long.
Hmm.
And not only that, though, but she'll teach me along the way to do it so that I don't consistently keep needing her, but I love paying her. So it's one of those things. But with all the amazing things that I'm good at, that's one thing I'm not good at. That's one thing I will gladly pay somebody else to go do that for me.
Right.
I will gladly pay her that money to teach me. And this, like, listen, I have a whole entire universal gym in my basement. You want to know who put that together? Wendy.
Oh wow.
This tiny old little lady who, again, worked at Toys R Us putting all their stuff together for 30 years, comes to my house and just builds stuff for me constantly.
Okay.
So, no, I'm not. And again, I'm not. Am I a leader?
Mhm.
Um, with certain things, of course, yes. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm one of those guys. Um, and maybe it's because of the terminology, but I'm one of those guys that I would rather people work with me than for me.
Right.
Like, even at my bookstore, I would tell them, like, you don't work for me. You work for the bookstore itself. I just might be the owner of the store, but you don't work directly for me. You're not doing this directly for me. You're doing this for the store as a whole. So I would bring people in consistently. That's how I met Brian,
Hmm.
because I was talking to the Chamber of Commerce and I told them, hey, there's a lot of things I do not know. Oh, cool. We know somebody who knows that. They hooked us up with Brian, and it's kind of been on from there. But I think that the first thing that we have to realize is that, where recognize what you're good at and where you're good at, and then give the rest of that mess to somebody else to handle
Yeah.
and let them just run. That's for me.
Well, and as I'm looking at different aspects of my videography business and reopening parts of it and whatnot, that's the piece I'm really going to emphasize. I'm not going to try to be the audio guy anymore. I'll make sure that I put that into what I'm charging the client and be able to hire a contractor to run audio, or you do the rigging, for lighting and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Paying for editors and stuff like that, as opposed to me feeling like I know how to do all this stuff, but it's not the best use of my time all the time. Sometimes I could apply my knowledge of the thing to make sure that I'm getting a good end product and basically supervise my contractor,
Mhm.
and make sure that they're providing me high quality stuff without me physically doing it. And recognizing that a lot of times the detail work isn't my strength.
Yeah.
I am the big picture. I am the 30,000 foot view guy, and sometimes my visions of what I think things are so far out and so complex that it's hard to explain it, but I know exactly how I'm going to get to it. I just need help with implementing details along the way. and figuring out
Mhm.
how to detail it along the way. When I was running my shelter, I realized that there's so, the art of scheduling was not something that I was strong with. And so I put one of the supervisors that worked under me and said, "You've been good at this. This is what you're going to do. This is what I need you to do. But what I need you to tell me is, what do I need to take off your plate to make you successful at the thing?"
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
And that was
Yeah.
my and I didn't see it as leadership. I just saw it as, this is me, this is me uh paving the way for us to be successful. And at the end
Yeah,
of
for
the day,
sure.
that's and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's leadership. And I think a lot of times people love the accolades of being the person that knows how to do all the stuff and all the things. And just because you know how to do all the stuff and all the things doesn't mean that you're always the best person to do it.
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
the other side is, sometimes you experience a negative outcome with a thing. And I lean into the wisdom of, was it Mr. Chow from The Hangover, The Hangover 2, where he's
Okay.
like, but did you die though? you
Right.
know, a negative thing happens, but did you die? Well, no.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, it sucked. What are we going to do to make it suck less? And then next time, what's going to make it suck a little bit less than that? And then, okay, so now now we've gotten past the part that sucks. Now how are we going to make this a good, positive experience?
Right.
And I think a lot of times for me, it's that one really jarring negative experience that's enough to send me running for the hills. And that's not something I'm strong with. I'm persistent,
Right.
but if something is super, super negative, sometimes I'm like, hell no, and that's it. Like, it's just where it's at. And that's a piece that I actually have to develop, where that's a muscle I got to develop, where I can iterate something that works really well. The other side is, sometimes I'll do something right, and then I'm like, ooh, this worked perfectly this way. How can I alter it again? And instead of just saying, let's try this again, and let's try this again, let's keep doing this, let's keep doing this,
Mhm.
and start stacking those wins on top of each other without iterating between. So there are all kinds of nuances when it comes to how you perceive things and how your brain works with it. Sean
Right.
said, I'm not good at listening to people's problems. I don't like people to be victims. My nieces and nephews let them, and I'm getting better at removing myself from people that complain all the time. Change your life or accept your crap.
I mean, here's the thing though, Shauna. I'm gonna have to ask you, how old are your nieces and nephews? Because if they're like 4 and 5, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if they're like 20 and 30, I 100% understand.
Well,
I
she,
get it.
I think there's a wisdom with it where the kids are like, just, yeah, if they're going to keep messing up, let them.
I
Like,
mean, yeah,
where
for sure.
your nieces, because she's saying her nieces and nephews are saying, let them, let them go, just screw up indefinitely and stop trying
Ah,
to control that side of things. I think that's what it, and that is the wisdom of kids, because kids don't have these level of expectations on themselves. They're like, hey, if it
they
doesn't
don't
work,
have the experience.
yeah. And sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you need
It's-
that.
and when you were asking me about what do I think about limited beliefs, that's why I was saying that it all depends.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, they got, and but that wisdom
Okay,
of
I get it.
a 19-year-old to say, you know what, this is cooked and you can't change it. This person is done, and you're not going to be able to alter them. Allow them to go off, and because there's the other side. Sometimes you got to go off and let people make their own mistakes, bro. Like,
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
and that's I struggle with that with my kids sometimes, where I will try to say, hey, don't do that, don't do that, are you sure you don't want to do that? Hey, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And then they still go ahead and do it anyway. The real lesson is the fact they went out and did it, and got the negative result. That's the lesson. My words didn't mean anything. The
Right.
thing that meant something was them going out and doing the thing and experiencing the negative result. It's my daughter all the time. Hey, it's really cold outside. Your The outfit is cute. You need a coat on. I'm okay. Okay. I may not be there right after school to pick you up. It's gonna be cold. Oh, I'm fine. Okay. And she gets in the car freezing. That's a learned experience. Now she won't walk out the house without that coat on.
Well,
So
I mean, at least you hope
yeah.
that you won't, because I assure you, My child does the same exact thing. Like he tried to go to school. He had a t-shirt on and it
Yeah.
was brutally cold.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? It's cold out. He's like, nah, we gonna be inside most of the time. I don't care. You still gotta get out of my car to walk into the school. When I come pick you up later, you still have to walk from the school to the car. Go put on a hoodie.
Yeah.
Something.
I don't understand. I drove to school. I dropped my kid off. I dropped my kids off yesterday, and I saw a kid walking as cold as it was, like 20 below, with a
Mm.
windshield. This little dude's walking to school in just a t-shirt and some sweatpants. Like, is the fashion? Is it that deep? And I guess when I was that age, maybe it would have been that deep. But also when I
Right,
was that
yeah,
age,
for sure.
I was wearing hoodies and bomber jackets
Yeah,
and Timberlands, and so I was always
yeah.
dressed for the winter and the summer.
You know what's so crazy, man? I don't think that most of our, at least the way I grew up, I don't really think that a lot of them cared what we, as long as you got out of the house,
Mhm.
I don't really think anybody really cared.
If we can get the kids to listen, I've blown up a lot of situations in my life. Hope they can review. Yeah, and they will learn from your mistakes, but they're going to learn more from when they get a chance to make their own, and then
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
compare their mistakes to
yeah.
your mistakes and say, "Oh wow, this doesn't work for anybody." Like it didn't work for
I
me, it
mean,
didn't
yeah,
work for
no,
Auntie,
it
and now
right, yeah, no, it's kind of like when you fall in love for the first or second or third or fourth time, and you can look at their you can look at their mates, that whether female or male, and know like this is probably not gonna work out so well.
yeah,
And you can tell, these youngins is like, hey, this ain't gonna this ain't gonna work out well. But they're like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Like I don't have 20 or 30 years over you. Like I haven't seen this. Like I haven't been through this before. I've been there.
yeah,
But again, until they go through it,
walking their nose wide open, nose all open and everything, and an
wet behind the ears and
older person
all
can
that shit.
older person can smell the red flags in the room,
Oh man.
and the kid just is oblivious and blind. It's like, oh, this is gonna be painful for you.
Like, yeah, I've been trying to call such and such and they won't pick up the phone. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Or they only call me during certain times. Again,
Mhm.
okay, right? I'm just saying, like, dude, like I was talking about my son, and I think it was like a year or so ago, he was telling me how much he loved this young lady. My son's 13.
Mhm.
So I think he was either 11 or 12. And he just broke down. I'm like, buddy. And I'm not going to make my son feel like shit or anything, but I told him, I said, son, like, he was saying, like, this hurts. How do I make it go away? And I'm like, son, you don't.
Right.
You got to live through this. You got to feel every emotion right now. I could teach you how to cover it up, but I'm not going to. You need to feel all of this. And you need to feel it for a couple reasons. Number one, you got to feel it because you don't ever want to do this to somebody else, right?
Mhm.
So we're talking about empathy and sympathy. And then the other thing is that most of us hide our emotions.
Mhm.
I don't want you hiding your emotions. I want you to live this. I want you to feel all of this. And I think that once you feel it, I think things may end up. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be better, but I'm just saying I think that because you felt this one good time, 2 3 years down the road you're going to fall in love again, and guess what? Same thing is going to happen again, but it's not going to be a new feeling.
Yep.
You've been there before. Okay, you know how you handled it before, so we may have to handle it the same way. But you got to feel this, all of it, as is.
I remember I had a case where the it was a kid, and when I was doing case management, I always used to tell people the money don't mean shit to me, because I've walked into situations where um this specific house was bigger than my house. Like the living room was almost as big as my house. Like I'm not
Hmm.
lying. Like you could fit a chunk of my house in their living room. Biggest house I'd ever walked into in my life, and also the single most dysfunctional family I'd ever encountered ever
Hmm.
in life. Like no skills of coping or anything. And one of the situations was we had one of them Romeo and Juliet situations where the son was head over heels for this young lady who was she was a little bit older than him, and she was a little bit smarter, had a little bit more going on up here than him, and she had him wrapped around her little finger. And mom was bound to determine that this was not going to happen. It was not going to happen on her watch, and she was going to prevent it. Didn't matter where she sit, what she had to pay to send him, whatever. She was not going to allow this and everything. And I kept saying, "Hey, what you need to do, since both of them kind of have the same temperament, if you and dad would just step back and put some boundaries around what your expectations of them are, but step back, they're going to hate each other within 6 months, and they'll probably never talk again.
Right.
But
Right.
as long as you try to insert yourself into this thing and say, I'm going to wedge you apart, you're pushing them together. You're giving them a common enemy to fight against." I said, that's the problem. And it didn't take hold with mom, where it's like, I don't think you understand. Sometimes it's easier to show a person than it is to tell a person. If you just put boundaries around what your expectations of them are and say, I don't agree with the relationship, but these are what my expectations of you are in order to maintain it. As long as you follow these expectations, me and your dad won't be involved as much. Eventually they're gonna, like, if you give them 6 months, they're gonna hate each other. And as soon, when he got out and he was kind of on his own doing his own thing, I asked him about the girl. I ain't worried about her no more. She get on my nerve. But that was when mom let go of that was after mom didn't have a choice but to let go of the control of it.
I mean, yeah, which is really funny because in psychology they say the same thing about like drug usage.
Mm-hmm.
If you start legalizing certain drugs, people will they'll stop using them
Right.
because it's not fun anymore. Man, just like drinking. I from 17 to I was about 21, 22. First off, I've never liked the taste of alcohol. It's never really been my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But from 17 until, man, like in my late teens, I always looked older, so I drank and drank and drank. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe you have to force yourself to like it,
Right.
you know? And I hit 21, 22. So I was still drinking a little bit. And then I just stopped. Again, I'm legal now. And
Mm-hmm.
I just stopped. And again, it's not like I didn't drink a little bit after that or through the years. I'll have a beer
Mm-hmm.
every other blue moon. I'll drink a Coors Light or something like that, and I'm cool. But once I was able to do it, wasn't fun anymore.
Well, the prohibition thing, and that's a very powerful thing. Like, I,
Yeah.
I remember, what was it, the old Pee Wee Herman commercial about the crack, where he held up the vial of crack and like, this is crack,
Ah,
this is crack. The Pee Wee Herman commercial, right? That's how they used to try to talk to kids about drugs, right? Like, we're gonna scare you into not doing the drugs and everything, and it
and
doesn't
most of
necessarily
the time it did the opposite effect.
it didn't work. I mean, they did that. They did the study and everything showed that the program Dare was a complete failure as it was implemented. They needed to make some changes about how they explained and some behavioral things about drug use and things along those lines. And
Not for everybody though.
yeah,
I I know when I took it when I was a kid,
yeah.
and they said as soon as you smoke this, you will be hooked for the rest of your life. I was like, nope, I'm cool. Because I saw people at that time that was high on that. I was like, nah, buddy.
Well,
Nope.
I
I
remember the way
want
that
nothing to do with that.
A cop showed up to the school and busted out a briefcase and had a bunch of drugs in it. And they're like, "This is heroin." And I'm in fifth grade, like, "What's heroin?" Well, this is. They hold up like I didn't even know what some of this stuff was. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
saying
right.
that I'm saying that because and I'm saying all that to say this. My mom was a manager at a methadone clinic. And sometimes I would have to go to work with her and sit on the other side. So I was experienced around heroin addicts and everything without necessarily knowing what it was. I just knew my mom would say they're on drugs and drugs are bad. Okay, I got it. But the methodology and the framework that they implemented with dare, they didn't really have a behavioral model attached to it. And that's why when they did the numbers that found the way they were teaching it, the model they were teaching it was super flawed.
Hmm.
you know and the people that created it didn't really want to hear all that. Like there's a whole seedy undercurrent to what dare actually is. And had a lot to do with Daryl Gates and the LAPD and a bunch of Supreme Court rulings that went against them and stuff like that, and that's what started the dare program.
Oh yeah, they went off. Yeah.
I digress, though. The thing about it is I see the Pee Wee Herman thing, and he's like, and if anybody ever offers you crack, and I'm sitting there like, well, there are people walking around just, hey kid, come here, here's some crack. Like the framing of it was such a bizarre way to put it. Like, as opposed to saying if you see it laying around, or like, which would have been more of a realistic thing. If you see it at somebody's house or you see it laying around, don't touch it or anything, or don't play around with it. If you see somebody doing it, don't copy what they're doing. They didn't frame it like that. They're like, if somebody walks up and offers it to you, like,
Hmm.
here's some expensive drugs that if I don't have the money for them, I'm going to get killed. Here, I'm gonna just give them away to you for free. That's not how that works. And so a lot of the way that they framed it was, we're going to try to scare you out of it. And for some people it works, for other people it doesn't. It's the same reason why those scare straight programs don't work. Because if you don't want a kid to go to jail, you don't show them jail. Like, you don't
Right.
take them to jail if you don't want them to go to jail. When I was doing probation and stuff, a lot of people thought that was the answer. And you try to scare kids with the Douglas County Youth Center. Oh, you're gonna go to the youth center. You're gonna go to the youth center. Well, then the kids go to youth center. Youth center wasn't that bad. And now this kid thinks, well, I survived the youth center. Tecumseh ain't nothing. And then they end up
Right.
getting they end up where it gets real fast for them. So I
Hmm.
do think that there's a balance of, sometimes you do let people experience it and try not to tell them too much. Like, okay, this is what my take is. Go choose your own adventure on this one, Chief.
Right.
um, but you might want to dust off the balls, March, man. It's one best time of year. I'm realistic. Completed bracket. I'm still gunning for that Warren Buffett bracket, bro. Like, I'm gonna get it one of these years, man. My
What
li-
I don't watch sports, so I don't know
so so a
what's
large
happening.
Warren Buffett said that he would pay somebody like $1 billion if they ever gave him a perfect bracket for March Madness, where you picked all the right teams and exactly who was going to win.
Oh really?
Yeah, because the statistics of it are so far fetched. It's almost like hitting the lottery, dropping a perfect bracket. Like, it's such a rare thing. But yeah, March Madness. I'm not huge into college basketball, but I do watch March Madness because it's more entertaining. The kids are playing like it's win or go home, and so you're going to see people playing their hardest at their best, laying it all on the line to try to advance. And so that's when you see the real pressure come in, and people are playing harder than
Hey,
they've
so
ever
is that
played
a real
before.
thing?
Well, March Madness or the bracket thing.
No, the thing with that Buffett.
Yeah, he did that. He did that a couple years ago. I don't know if it's a standing challenge, but he said he put up $1 billion of his own money and said, if you bring me a bracket that's perfect, and I don't know if it's an ongoing thing, but one of these years he said it. March Madness, yeah, Warren Buffett March Madness continues his annual March Madness bracket challenge for Berkshire Hathaway. In
Oh
2016,
wow.
he offers him $1 million for high performance. After years of no winners, Buffett modified the rules in 2025 to pay $1 million to anyone correctly picking 30 to 30 of the first 32 games. So yeah.
Okay, what is it?
So at Berkshire Hathaway, he has an ongoing thing where, for his employees, if you get the first if you get out of the first 32 games that get played, right? If you pick 30 of the winners, you get money. You get like $1 million. But he also had one that was if you had the perfect one, he offered $1 billion for the perfect bracket.
For a perfect bracket. So there's different levels to what he's doing.
Yeah,
We're talking about okay.
yeah. And he's just trying to show you, like, in his mind, he's trying to show you how impossible it is. But he's also getting, it's fun, like it's kind of a fun thing for the employees to all compete against each other and stuff like that, and do the bracket things. A lot of businesses try to discourage it, but most people end up if they have a business that fights against the March Madness thing, they'll just take the day off and go to the bar and sit there and watch it with their bracket in front of them. So why not incorporate it into the work day and motivate
So
your
let me.
employees?
So you have to get 30 teams.
Yep.
You have to get 30 of these things right.
Yeah, you got to pick the first out of 32. You got to pick 30 of them, and it'll give you and that employee wins $1 million.
So do you have to do it beforehand?
Yeah, you have to do your brackets. Like, I got to do my bracket before. Like, typically my deadline is Wednesday because the games start on Thursday.
Okay, so March Man, how long does it last?
About was it 2 or 3 weeks?
So March Madness goes from bam to boom, and so the bet is that you have to start here before the games start.
Yeah, you gotta guess who's gonna win.
Guess who's gonna win or guess who's gonna play?
No, you guess who's gonna win. You already know who's playing. So the brackets already exist. So, like, most of the brackets are like, we already know who's in the tournament in most cases. Like, there's some teams that, some really super low ranked teams where they're still playing, but they kind of throw them out the way it's kind of figured. They figure they're going to lose in the first round anyway. Realistically, what you do is you know who's on both sides of the bracket, and then you go through and pick who's going to win this game, who's going to win this game, who's going to win this game in each round, and then you just whittle them down to all the way until you get to who's in the finals, who's in the championship game.
Okay.
So yeah, but that's his challenge, and it makes it fun for the employees. They get a chance to go, they get a chance to kind of pick their teams and stuff like that. And there's all kinds of bracketology stuff where they actually use whoa um they actually there's a lot of bracketology and stuff where they're mathematical things like a seventh seed can beat an 11th seed, and they win a specific amount of times. Or sometimes this is the upset bracket, like was it 6 and I forgot how it was, but this lower rank typically has a better chance of beating this higher rank. And so there's a lot of other factors that go into it. A lot of math. But yeah, and that's what he does. So it's kind of a dope little thing. I need to get back on my outline though. So where do limiting beliefs come from? We talked about this, right? Childhood experiences, sometimes your social environment, family expectations, economic reality is a real one that I think people discount a lot. A lot of times the economic environment that you grew up in will shape your beliefs about what you're capable of. Specifically, sometimes if you've never seen somebody that has a specific level of wealth, it's hard to imagine yourself in that spot. Some people can, some people can't. But cultural narratives, personal failure is one that shaped a lot of my limiting beliefs around stuff. And sometimes they can come from somebody trying to protect you. That's the one you got to be careful of, especially with kids, because we want our kids to succeed and we want to make their pathway to success. Sometimes we want to make it so they don't have to go through the same things that we did, but sometimes they need to experience the same things that you did to learn the same lessons. Sometimes your words ain't enough. Okay. Here's the one that you got to be careful of. And people do it all the time online. Somebody projecting their own fear upon you. And I'll add another one: somebody projecting their own limitations on you.
Hmm. Like, yeah, telling you that you can't do something because they either tried to do it and failed, or
Uh-huh.
they seen somebody else try it, or they don't think that it can be done
Yeah,
based on it can be done for them.
right. And projecting the fear is projecting the fear is kind of a neutral thing, but projecting their own limitations on you, that's insidious. But to me, that's kind of an insidious thing, where somebody will project what their limitations and lack of skills and gaps and knowledge, they try to project that on you. So just because they're not capable of doing X, Y, and Z, they're trying to make you feel like you're incapable of doing A, B, and C.
Right.
And so, and that's where you do have to edit who's in your circle too. And sometimes you may not be able to edit who's in your circle, but edit who you actually take advice from.
Okay.
Because sometimes that person projecting their own fear or limitations on you is actually a family member, and they love you, and it's in their, they think it's in your best interest, but they don't understand how they're affecting you with their negativity.
Hmm.
Um, so and you got to weigh it out. Like sometimes it is like, yeah, man, there's a wild pit bull in there. Don't walk in that room. No, man, you scared of a wild pit bull. I ain't scared of no rabid pit bull. And you walk in there and get
Right.
mauled. And other times it's, you probably, I don't know, man. I tried to start a business that one time and it didn't work out. And I don't think it could work for anybody.
Hmm.
That's where you got to balance it out.
Okay.
So what's your take on that, Fearless, with the projecting their own fear or
Uh,
limitations on you?
I get it. It happens. Again, I don't think that people are trying to hurt you. I just think that they're, like you said, trying to protect you and trying to protect you from getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in the in, in the interim of that, they end up hurting you and themselves because you could have gone out there and done some amazing things, but because fear stops you from doing it. But again, a lot of that's still based on you.
Right.
You
Well,
know, well, I mean, because here's the thing: like, I think that sometimes the people around us can be worse than the public, like far worse,
mm-hmm.
because at least they know us and they know for the most part what we're capable of. But what happens when in the public they don't know you at all? So
Right.
when it's personal,
Right.
when it's personal, that's when it sucks.
It's personal when and that's what it sucks. And the other side is sometimes, jealousy can take many forms. So, that may be like that person in public is probably just
Yeah, for
could be
sure.
just jealous of you're in a position to do a thing that they don't see themselves capable. That's why your biggest critics are on YouTube. More times than not, when you start posting stuff, you're gonna find people that are super critical of what you do or say. And you know, the way you should qualify their opinions is, in my mind, well, I mean, if they knew so much, then why don't they have their own channel telling people how to do it the right way?
Right, yeah.
Because all they and it sometimes when you go to like, because you can always, when somebody leaves a comment on your YouTube video, you can click and see who they are and click and see what other stuff they post. And if you see
Hmm.
somebody, all they do is just post negative stuff in everybody's feed, it's like that. So this person's just living life vicariously through other people, and then not only that, but they're also injecting negativity vicariously in other people's worlds. And so you got to take that with a grain of salt, as opposed to somebody who honestly feels like they're looking out for your best interest. Um, you have to balance that out, because yeah, they may be looking out for your best interest, but they may be doing you long-term harm.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I agree.
so,
100%.
and the thing is, beliefs start as adaptations to earlier situations or environments. Yeah, like sometimes you are limited in belief just based on what your current situation is, but situations change and they can be contextual. And so you may not be in the same situation, but you're carrying the same beliefs. Does that really serve you anymore?
Correct.
Okay. And this does lead into the when the limiting beliefs actually serve a purpose.
Does it or will it serve a purpose?
Well, what at their time, I think there are narrow times where having a limit on what you actually believe you're capable of is a good thing. Now, It's very, very, very hyper contextual.
Hmm.
And you got to take a lot of this with a grain of salt. But there are times when limits are not a bad thing. Not every limits are bad. Some limits function as risk management, survival strategy, or emotional protection.
Right.
That's the guy that has the drinking problem who has a limiting belief that if he indulges one time, he's going to go back down. He's going to fall back down the well. And sometimes
Yeah.
that limiting belief is a real thing. A relapse is a real
Yeah.
thing. And so sometimes you want to support them in that limiting belief and not put them in the situation where they're going to be exposed to possibly going back down that road again.
Yep.
So I see that as a good
I
limiting belief.
agree.
Um, Gambling, I shouldn't gamble money. I can't afford to lose. I've already dealt with the client who was a gambler, and it was not a great situation. Um, I shouldn't trust everyone immediately. Yeah. Um, are you starting to see this with? I don't know if it's a kid thing, fearless, but do you see it with your kid? Do you see it where your kids are a little bit more trusting than they need to be of people that haven't really gone the gone the place where they haven't really earned the trust. It's just they know them online or they've talked to them a little bit and they like, yeah, it seems
It's
like
like,
a
yeah,
good person.
this dude's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son just went to a concert.
Uh huh.
I think it was last Friday. Yeah, I think it was either last Thursday or Friday, and maybe even Wednesday actually. But he just went to a concert, and the boy just called him up out of the blue. Hey, do you want to go? Came in and Dad, can I go to a concert with who? I
Right.
do from school. Who from school? And he's telling me. I'm kind of like, I've never heard you talk about this dude before.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did you guys get each other's numbers? Do you guys ever talk? So I'm asking all of these questions to, and my son, he's answering the questions or whatever. And so we get on the phone with the young man, and his mom is on the phone, and um, we start talking. And I'm like, do you want money for this? And they're like, no, we just have an extra ticket. He asked Caden if he
Hmm.
wanted to go, but then I found out later that they asked a few other kids if they wanted to go. They
Ah.
all said no. And then they got to Caden. Caden's like, yeah, I'll go. And when I dropped Caden off, I met the kid and his parents, and there's a few of them going. So I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, and I felt a little bit better. But the fact of my son just being so trustworthy out the gate was just kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. And
I didn't like that.
that's a hard lesson to learn because
Sorry.
a lot of times, especially at this it can be a generational thing too, where for me and you, I know for me, it's explaining to my kids, yeah, that's the internet, and the internet's not real. The
Hmm.
people you meet on the internet, that's not the real person that you're meeting on the internet. That you're meeting their representative, their version that can work in the matrix, their
Right.
vision of themselves that they want to project into the world. But that's not a real person. And for some of these kids, they treat online like their diary of everything.
It's yeah. Actually, that's what Sean was saying. She said that. I mean, when the kids made mistakes before, we just kind of chunked it up to youth and inexperience. Now, first thing they do, they run online and tell everybody they shit.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Well,
saying? Like, I am, I'm doing this. I mean, just like when I do things, when I buy things, whatever. One of the first questions that people ask me is, um, why didn't I see that on online? And I always tell people that success doesn't come with an audience.
right.
And like it 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 doesn't work that way. If you want something, do whatever. I mean, if you want to go get it for the most part, but you don't have to tell everybody that's what you have.
Right.
Like I love books. Like I will. Oh my gosh, dude, what? I'll put books up all day long.
Mm-hmm.
But anything of any like material possession, like I just bought something pretty big. And again, unless you know me, you're not gonna know what that was.
Right.
I had to go to Kansas City some years back to go get something that I purchased. I would have loved to tell people what it is. But again, though, I'm good. I'm just keep it to myself. But I don't need to tell everybody everything, and you don't need to know everything. You're
Well,
all right.
well, and I think it is one of those things where, again, it's that online world. Like, if you grew up where, like my age, where, I grew up my childhood, this online stuff didn't even exist. And it didn't really exist until I was older, like in my late teens, early 20s, where there was an entire online world to escape into. Like we had AOL and all that other stuff, but you kind of dabbled in that, you kind of played around in AOL Instant Messenger and stuff like that. And I think that is the difference, because now, again, this person's entire life can be internet based, and the kids feel like they have some insight into this person. And it comes with it, there's some psychological stuff, there's some therapeutic stuff, where they info dump a bunch of really like hyper traumatic, hyper personal stuff on them at the beginning to force a connection. And the kid forms that trust because this person over disclosed a bunch of stuff that they probably should not be disclosing to strangers or kids that just met. And so now they feel like, well, I know something, you know dark and secret about this person, you know, and now they feel like they have a stronger connection, man. I worry about that every single day with my kids interacting with people.
Oh man, dude.
And so it does come from, that level of distrust comes from, I lived life before this internet thing was a real thing.
Yeah,
And I
that part.
and so I know that the person on the other end, in just the internet only relationship, is a fully functioning human being, and they're capable of being somebody else online. You know, and I've actually met a couple of people that I know that I met on Facebook in real life before. Like I met them and then talked to them offline, and kind of forged that relationship there. So there's an online and offline connection. Um,
Mhm.
some of these kids, they meet somebody online and that's all they know about them. It's like you may not even know that person's real name.
Yeah, right.
um, is it is either Papoose or Tragedy Gaddafi. Before you bring him in, you better know his blood type. Like before you bring this dude around here, you better know everything about them before we accept them. And that's kind of how I grew up with friends and with my friends and stuff. Like, yeah,
Right.
we're cool with each other, but that dude out there, if you're gonna vouch for him, you need to know everything about him before
Mhm.
we even consider
I
bringing
mean,
him around.
or at least at least a few defining things about a person.
Hmm.
I mean, again, do you need to know everything about a person? No, because you don't know even your day ones. You
Yeah,
don't know everything about them.
right.
So I mean, it's just those qualifying things that you might need to know. Yeah, I get it. But
So
as, but as far as anything more, ah,
yeah, so a lot of times when it comes to the limiting beliefs that protect you, you got to know there's between a limiting belief and a boundary, a limiting belief and caution. you know, that those are things that you need to actually maintain your beliefs around. If it's a personal boundary to prevent you from getting caught up emotionally or physically hurt, that's not a limiting belief. That's a boundary. You know what I'm saying? Um, sometimes growth ignores reality. Like sometimes we get so locked in with this concept of growing and stuff like that. You end up ignoring the reality of what's in front of you. You know, sometimes it happens with businesses, man. The business can expand too damn fast. and they get
Yeah, yeah,
disconnected
yeah.
from the reality.
That happened with me before. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to jump through these last two and then we can kind of wrap this up.
All right.
So, when does limiting belief become self sabotage, Fearless?
When does the limited belief become self sabotage? I think that when you don't have any um experience, assumption, or even a reference
Hmm.
to use against or for something that you're doing. I
Okay.
mean, dude, there's I don't think there's anything wrong with having some doubt or whatever, but as long as that doubt doesn't stop you from moving forward, it's okay. You do,
Right.
I have doubt on shit all the time. I just do it anyway.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I get that a person would have doubt. I get it.
And so I got, when limiting belief stops you from trying things or experimenting, I would say leaning outside of your comfort zone a little bit, where it keeps you firmly in your comfort zone. Um, and it also prevents you from adapting to a novel situation. That's when the limiting belief actually becomes a self sabotage.
Okay.
Um, the again, it goes back to I could never start a business. People like me don't get opportunities like that. I'll probably fail anyway. Like those kind of beliefs, they 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 shrink the possibility, but they also remove your personal accountability and your own agency. You know, you've given your power over to the universe and put your entire was it locus of control outside of yourself.
Hmm.
And you're kind of walking, you're just sitting there, you've created this prison for yourself of your own mind,
Right.
you know, and it ends up becoming self-fulfilling prophecy where you believe this thing to be true and it's not beneficial for you, but because you believe it so fervently, you're going to make this thing your reality, and it ends up being negative for everybody involved.
Okay.
All right. um Dang, there's a lot here. So let's talk about let's talk about um using limiting beliefs, using that framework we applied to the difference between limiting belief and somebody stepping over your boundaries and stuff. How do you make this stuff work for you? How do you put all this stuff together to be beneficial towards you? How do you put a frame like? And I don't have notes on this one, so this is going to be me and you kind of talking it out. How do you create a framework using your limiting beliefs where on one end they are keeping you moored and grounded to reality, and on the other end they're not snuffing out your dreams before you even try them? What kind of framework can we put there?
So are you asking like what type of expectations
Yeah.
you have and what type of bound? I mean, so here's the thing. Boundaries for the most part are based on not only the things that protect you from others, but also others from yourself,
Hmm.
right? So that's kind of what boundaries are or whatever. Having certain standards for certain things and certain expectations for certain things, all those words mean something pertaining to our where we're standing at. So if I were to say that if you were starting a business, you would do the SWOT method or whatever, which is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and then your threats.
Hmm.
So I think that if you put those out, if you at least understand what those are, and you go talk to somebody about it that's been there and done that, that risk aversion kind of gets knocked off the pedestal a lot faster,
Yeah.
right? At least I think so. So I think that whenever you're creating something, that's where you start from. You gotta understand strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and your threats. Get that, you'll be fine.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Got it. Got it. I think it is. I always say the framework I use is, how does this belief serve me? Is this belief protecting me or is it limiting me? Like,
Yeah.
evaluating each belief that I encounter is, does it what service does this provide me? Is this something that actually is leading me towards something constructive and positive, or is it something that is preventing me from uh, stretching out, expanding and stretching and taking on something new? Or is it actually protecting me? Like, because sometimes it can be
Right.
protecting you, you know. And I think that's kind of the framework I run with. How I always look at it, how does this thing serve me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think as long as you kind of frame it like that and kind of say, okay, well, my limiting beliefs about boxing polar bears is one that protects me and keeps me alive. Okay, so this is a limiting belief that actually works.
Yeah, boxing polar bears. Yeah,
Getting out there and putting on shoot,
yeah, good stuff.
getting out there wrestling polar bears, I mean, or wrestling alligators, then if I have a belief around that and saying, hey, Brian, that's not your life and that's not what you do, that's going to protect me from in the weird situation I ever encounter a polar bear on a random street
Mm-hmm.
corner somewhere. I guess. Um, and so I think it is really looking internally, because sometimes beliefs can serve you in different contexts of your life. Sometimes you may be in a season in your life where this belief no longer serves you and actually holds you back, and then you can reevaluate whether that belief is something that you need to hold on to or something you need to lean into and reconsider. So that's what I'll say. Let's see, make sure we touched on everything. Yep, touched on the testing limiting belief. Is it protecting me or distracting me? What would happen if I tried anyway? Okay. And so the reason why I wanted to talk about this is it kind of falls into the theme of the trial and error show, right? We want you to go out and try things and error and get this experience of having the error. And more times than not, I think a lot of times people are terrified of the error. They're terrified of what happens if this thing doesn't go right, and they
Which
never try
most of
it.
the time it won't,
Yeah,
and sometimes it will.
right. And that error side is the thing that where the real lesson is. Um, you know, a lot. It's where the lesson is. Your failure is where your lesson is. Um, and I think, and I say failure. I know we've talked about it before. I don't have a problem with the concept of I tried this, I failed, I'm gonna try it again. For some people, failure is the destination. That's the ending point. That's a termination point. And so that use of the word failure isn't constructive for them. And so it would say I tried this and it didn't go right. I'm gonna try it again, as opposed to I failed. Right. Um, and I think for me, that's kind of where this show is we're going to try things, and it's encouraging you to go out and try things within reason
Mm-hmm.
and getting the experience, because the experience is more important than the reward of if the thing went right. Sometimes you just need the experience of the thing to show you.
Right.
So, Liberty's on here. Listening to this for a while,
Hey, what's up, man?
it occurs to me that most of what you guys are talking about are emotional reaction or lack of sophistication. For example, currently a friend wants to open a small business. He's not open to any advice or research about it. Similarly, I have a business. If I have a business investment ideas, he tells others tell me I'm wrong. I listen. I'm careful to listen to them and not to react emotionally. It's quite possible they're right. Yeah, it balance.
That's what you said.
Yeah,
That's what you said. Like, yeah, I mean, it does happen. I mean, and somebody else very much could be right about it. You
yeah,
might want to start something and you might just be wrong.
yeah.
Sorry, I mean, and again, that same idea, you might be right about it. Go try it out. I mean, you also got to remember too, though, that certain things that work for you may not work for other people, and
Yeah.
vice versa. How many times have you? I've seen I've seen people say that they're gonna do something or try something and it doesn't work, and guess what? They back on off and keep it pushing. You know, it's just one of those things, though, man. I mean, this is trial and error, so I would always hope that a person gets out and at least tries
Yeah.
to
They,
to do their stuff. I mean, again, I mean, like I said, just because it didn't work for somebody else doesn't mean it won't work for that person.
Yeah, they can't duplicate your execution in the way that you implement stuff. And so
No,
sometimes things that you would narrate, some things that sometimes the things that would only be successful if you are the one that did them. That's sometimes that's a very real thing. Sometimes you're the only
yeah,
one that can create the situation and the conditions for your success just because you have the vision and you have an instinct for how this thing needs to go. Other times, talking to other people and learning, okay, this is where they screwed up can absolutely prevent you from going down the same path. And you can shortcut years and years of learning by just learning from what they did or what they didn't do. And so you have to consider all of these things. And I think maybe the ending point for me is a lot of this is an internal game. And sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're right about a limiting belief, sometimes you're wrong. Um, I I'm more in the mode of figuring out how I can prove myself wrong about things. And I think that's where I've gotten a lot of success is, I'll have my negative inner voice, my negative inner passenger will sit there and be screaming at me, this thing is wrong, this is not going to work, you're going to fail. And my thing is I go out there and try it anyway so I can prove myself wrong. And I've had success doing it. So, like I said, guys, choose your own adventure. Whatever works for you what works for you. If you like it, I love it. um,
yeah.
Fearless. Do you have anything to wrap up with?
Nope. I have school, man. Nah, I'm not really touching much on anything, sir.
All right. So that's all we got, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all of our guests who jumped on the stream.
For sure,
This,
man.
that helps out a lot when you guys jump in and drop a comment or whatnot. And just kind of leave what your thoughts are because that gives real benefit to the show because you may have a perspective that somebody else out there needs to hear. And so we try to make sure that we get and put your stuff on the screen as much as possible. Okay.
Yeah.
Even the little dude that with the hell Satan thing on there, man. We even put your stuff on there. I don't know what you on, but that is that it is what it is, bro. Like I said, if you like it, I love it for you. But that's all I got. I'm Brian.
Fearless here.
All right, we'll talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.